Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a rather unusual stack of sources to analyze for you today.
Yeah, unusual is definitely the word.
And I suspect by the time we finish unpacking them, the way you interpret the literal physical space around you is, well, it's going to be fundamentally challenged.
Oh, absolutely. The materials we're looking at today, they demand a massive shift in perspective. I mean, we are dealing with concepts that bridge this gap between hard physics, neurobiology, and, just subjective reality itself.
Right. And to give you a sense of what we're working with, our sources feature this really jarring juxtaposition. On one hand, we have a very standard, entirely mundane text support note pulled from X.com.
Which is so funny to find in this context.
It really is. It simply states, some privacy-related extensions may cause issues on X.com. Please disable them and try again.
Right. And that is a prompt most of us just, dismiss without a second thought while we're navigating the web.
Exactly. It's entirely forgettable. But paired with it is an incredibly dense, multi-part physics and philosophy manifesto.
Authored by a Japanese blogger, right?
Yes, under the handle Zionod 2023. And the title of this specific draft, get ready for this, is Mr. Einstein Slacking 115 Weaving Cartesian Coordinate Space from Spherical Space.
Yeah, that title alone signals that we are diving into some really heavy theoretical frameworks.
It does. But when you place these two texts next to each other, this really compelling metaphor emerges. And it kind of serves as the overarching mission for our deep dive today.
I love how these two connect.
So think about it. A browser privacy extension acts as an artificial filter, right? It intercepts code, blocks tracking pixels, delays certain scripts.
And ultimately alters the final rendering of the web page that actually makes it to your monitor.
Exactly. You aren't seeing the raw data from the server. You are seeing a curated, filtered output.
Right. The extension essentially establishes a barrier between the objective reality of that server and the subjective experience of you, the user.
Spot on. And what Zionad 2023 argues in this really extensive blog post is that the fundamental laws of physics, specifically the finite speed of light function as the universe's ultimate privacy extension.
That is such a wild concept to wrap your head around.
It is. The speed of light acts as this inescapable filter that delays and distorts sensory information before it ever has a chance to reach our biological hardware.
Right.
So today, we're going to break down the highly specific visual thought experiments the author uses to demonstrate how human beings construct a map of reality, and why our intuitive sense of now is actually a biological fabrication.
And the author begins this breakdown by targeting a concept that is so ingrained in us we rarely ever question it, which is the 3D Cartesian coordinate system.
Right, the classic XYZ axis.
Exactly. We naturally navigate the world treating our own physical bodies as the origin point. We walk around acting like we are 0.000.
The center of the universe.
Literally. We measure all distances and relative velocities radiating outward from our own skulls.
And, I mean, that egocentric coordinate system, it's a biological necessity. We wouldn't be able to, walk across a room or catch a ball if we didn't intuitively map space relative to our own center of gravity.
Oh, for sure. But the source argues this default setting is exactly what blinds us to the true nature of space-time.
Right. And to expose that blind spot, Zionod 2023 constructs a scenario involving a train. So I want you to picture this. Imagine the side profile of a train car just sitting perfectly still on a track.
All right.
The front wheel makes contact with the rail at a coordinate we'll label x equals 1, and the back wheel touches down at x equals -1.
Which perfectly places the exact center of that train car at x equals 0.
Exactly. Now, the scenario asks us to imagine that both of those wheels strike the metal rails and produce a bright spark at the precise same microsecond.
A perfectly simultaneous event on the x-axis.
Right. Both sparks, exact same time.
Now, what's fascinating here is the catch. The critical variable the author introduces is the position of the observer.
Yeah.
Yes, you. You are not standing on the tracks at x equals 0, absorbing those sparks equidistant from your eyes. You are standing a significant distance away, perpendicular to the tracks.
Okay, so off to the side.
Right. Let's place you at a coordinate of y equals 10. Because you're offset from the event, the photons from the sparks at x equals -1 and +1, they can't just travel straight to you.
They have to travel on a diagonal path through space to reach your retina.
Exactly.
But wait, let me just challenge the practical significance of that for a second.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the speed of light here. Even traveling diagonally from y equals 10, the light reaches the observer in a fraction of a nanosecond.
Yeah.
Is the blogger suggesting this tiny diagonal path alters our perception in a meaningful way, or is this just kind of a mathematical exercise in pedantry?
No, the author is arguing it is the absolute foundation of all human illusion.
Wow.
To understand why that micro delay actually matters, Zionad 2023 introduces the concept of the transparent sphere.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where the visuals get really cool.
Yeah, so imagine your eye is essentially a camera lens, and it's positioned flawlessly at the center of a perfectly transparent sphere with a radius of 1.
A literal bubble around your eye.
Exactly. This sphere represents the absolute threshold of your perception. It's the boundary line between the external universe and your internal sensory processing.
Okay, so back to the train scenario. The sparks ignite on the tracks. The light rays shoot diagonally towards you at your vantage point of y equals 10.
Right.
But before those rays can physically enter your pupil, they first have to pierce the outer shell of that transparent sphere.
And the author visualizes this moment of intersection as two distinct orange points suddenly glowing on the surface of your personal perceptual bubble.
I love that image. Just two glowing orange dots on the glass.
It's very striking. And at this point, the text dives into the specific math of the delay. Because light obeys a strict speed limit, that journey from the steel tracks to the surface of your sphere takes a quantifiable amount of time.
Right. The blogger breaks down the calculations to really highlight that temporal gap. So if the observer were standing relatively close to the tracks, say just at y equals 1, the author calculates that the light takes roughly 1.4 units of time to make the journey.
But our observer is positioned much further back, right? At y equals 10. So to find that diagonal distance, we simply apply the Pythagorean theorem.
Dusting off the high school geometry.
Exactly. We take the square root of 10 squared plus 1 squared.
Which gives us the square root of 101.
Right, which translates to roughly 10.05 units of time.
Well,
Now, the math itself isn't meant to be some physics test for the reader.
no, not at all.
It's meant to establish an inescapable physical reality. By the time the light from those train wheels pierces your transparent sphere and registers on your biological sensors, the physical event that created the light is already 10.05 time units in the past.
The event is dead and gone. The universe has totally moved on, but you are just now receiving the notification that it happened.
You're essentially watching a delayed broadcast. The present moment you think you're reacting to is actually just the historical record of the universe finally arriving at the boundary of your sphere.
That is so wild to think about. And Zionad 2023 leans on a couple of really striking analogies to make this abstract delay feel a bit more concrete.
Yeah, the first one relies on the mechanics of a cloud chamber.
Right. So think about how a standard cloud chamber operates in a laboratory. We don't actually observe the cosmic rays or charged particles shooting through the chamber, right? They're completely invisible to us.
Totally invisible.
What we actually observe are the white trails of condensed vapor left in their wake.
So the observer is entirely reliant on the secondary evidence of the event.
Exactly. And the blogger maps that concept directly onto our transparent sphere. When light hits that sphere, we aren't seeing the pure, unadulterated event taking place on the train tracks. Our visual system is reacting to the electromagnetic ripples, the vapor trails of the light waves after the fact.
Your entire field of vision is just a massive cognitive cloud chamber.
That is such a cool way to phrase it.
And the author pushes this even further by zooming out from a local train track to the scale of the entire solar system.
This was my favorite part of the draft.
Yeah. Consider looking through a straight-tube Galileo telescope at the night sky. You aim the lens at Jupiter, and then you aim it at Saturn.
Okay, so I'm looking at both planets.
Right. But the light leaving the surface of Jupiter and the light leaving the surface of Saturn depart at drastically different moments in time due to their respective distances from Earth.
Because Saturn is so much further away.
Exactly. Saturn's light has to begin its journey significantly earlier just to cover the extra space.
Yet, when you look through the eyepiece of that telescope, those two entirely distinct beams of light hit the glass lens simultaneously.
They do. And this creates a profound temporal paradox for the observer. Those two light beams paint simultaneous points of illumination on your transparent sphere. From the perspective of your sensory input, the arrival of the light is happening now.
Right. They hit my sphere at the exact same time.
Exactly. And your brain takes those disparate signals, completely ignores the billions of miles and minutes of delay separating them and just stitches them together into a single cohesive image.
The visual processing center essentially flattens the depth of the solar system into a two-dimensional photograph. It hands you this composite image and tricks you into believing you're witnessing a unified present moment containing both planets.
It's incredible.
It really forces us to ask how the brain manages to pull off this massive temporal stitching job without us ever feeling the seams.
And to explain that cognitive sleight of hand, the source introduces this incredibly effective structural analogy. The author models human consciousness as a corporate hierarchy.
The corporate brain.
Let's examine the mechanics of this corporate brain.
Yes, less. So in this framework, the photoreceptors in your eyes, the rods and cones lining your retinas, they function as the lowest level field workers.
The ground crew.
Right. The text actually refers to them as plain employees. And these biological employees possess zero analytical capabilities. They do not understand what a train is or what a planet is. Their sole function is to stand out in the field and record raw data.
A photon hits them, and they trigger an electrochemical signal. That's it.
Exactly. They are simply logging the inventory of light piercing the sphere.
And once that raw, totally disjointed data is collected, the plain employees send it up the corporate ladder via the optic nerve.
Right, up to management.
The data arrives at the visual cortex, which the author casts in the role of the executive management team. And these executives have a monumentally difficult job.
Oh, for sure.
They have to take the delayed, distorted, two-dimensional signals arriving from that spherical boundary and somehow synthesize them into a coherent 3D model. They have to calculate distance, infer shapes, and assign context based on memory and pattern recognition.
They are basically tasked with writing the executive summary of reality.
That's exactly what it is, an executive summary.
And once that highly edited, heavily processed report is finalized, the executives slide it onto the desk of the CEO. And in this analogy, the CEO is your conscious mind.
It's the awareness listening to this deep dive right now.
Right. And the most unsettling implication of this corporate brain model is just the profound isolation of the CEO.
Yes. The conscious mind is locked inside a dark, silent skull. It never has direct access to the train tracks or the telescope or the outside world. The CEO is entirely dependent on the executive summary.
So the executives take that curved arc of delayed light that hit your sphere and they artificially flatten it out. They present a mental image of a straight train car to the CEO. They filter out the complex physics of the delay and present a streamlined, actionable narrative.
And the text drops a classic philosophical axiom here. The map is not the territory.
The map is not the territory, meaning the reality you experience is just the map drawn by your visual cortex. It is fundamentally disconnected from the physical territory of the universe.
Right. And up to this point in the text, we've really been operating under the assumption that the train tracks are just this static stage.
A fixed background.
Exactly. But Zionad 2023 forces us to broaden the parameters, because the train, the tracks, and the planet Earth itself are not sitting still. They are hurtling through a cosmic electromagnetic field at immense velocities.
So the local Cartesian coordinate system we rely on, that 0, 0, 0 origin point, it completely breaks down when you introduce the macro movement of both the observer and the environment.
It shatters. And to illustrate this, the source shifts from a train yard to a tennis court.
Oh, the Wimbledon analogy.
Yes. Imagine you're sitting in the umpire's chair, towering over center court at Wimbledon. You represent the observer inside the transparent sphere. But in this scenario, player 1 is the train, moving at velocity m.
Okay.
And player 2 is the track itself, moving through the cosmos at velocity n. You are attempting to officiate a match where the players, the surface of the court, and the ball were all moving independently through a massive electromagnetic sea.
Which just sounds like an absolute nightmare to officiate.
It really does. But this scenario is where the author reveals the ultimate ambition of the draft. Zionad 2023 isn't just pointing out a biological quirk here. They are attempting to reconcile a historical friction between three massive pillars of physics.
The author states the goal is to force an information consultant to generate a unified flat map.
Right.
And this flat map has to account for James Clerk, Maxwell, Isaac Newton, and Albert Einstein all at once, which is huge. How exactly does the blogger suggest unifying those three drastically different frameworks?
Well, it requires translating three distinct languages of physics. So Maxwell's equations govern electromagnetism. They dictate how those light waves propagate through the field and pierce your transparent sphere.
So that's the realm of the raw data, the plain employees.
Exactly. Then you have Newton's classical mechanics, which govern the physical mass of the train moving along the macroscopic physical territory.
Right.
And finally, Einstein's theories of relativity and Brownian motion, which govern the shifting frames of reference. That's the umpire trying to measure the moving train while the Earth itself moves.
So just to recap that, Maxwell defines the speed of the delayed signal, Newton defines the physical object, and Einstein defines the relativity of the observer's position.
Precisely. And the information consultant in the blogger's theory represents a new mathematical framework. It's a proposed way to translate the delayed, spherical sensory input governed by Maxwell into an accurate 3D mental model that respects the physical realities of Newton while fully accounting for the relativistic distortions proven by Einstein.
So the author's basically searching for the ultimate algorithm to correct the CEO's distorted corporate report.
That's the holy grail thereafter, yeah.
And to tether these incredibly dense theories to something tangible, something we can actually picture, the blogger embeds several video links right into the draft.
And these aren't diagrams or, dry physics lectures.
No. They are clips of the Sphere in Las Vegas, that massive $2 billion entertainment arena that is entirely coated in high-resolution LED screens.
Which, honestly, including footage of a Las Vegas concert venue in a theoretical physics paper about Cartesian space, initially seems totally absurd.
It seems like a typo, but when you watch the linked videos, the connection becomes brilliant.
It really does.
One video shows the interior of the venue transforming into this hyper-realistic glowing moon that just seems to hang heavily over the audience. Another clip shows thousands of digital feathers seemingly drifting down from an invisible sky. And a third shows a band performing on a digital stage that appears to float in a limitless empty abyss.
The Las Vegas sphere is the practical application of everything SciEd 2023 is theorizing.
Yeah.
It is a massive real-world manifestation of manipulating the transparent perception sphere.
It's the ultimate hack of the corporate brain.
Yeah.
The engineers running the visuals at the Las Vegas sphere are essentially playing the role of the universe. They understand exactly how the biological plain employees, the retinas of 20,000 people in that room, will receive those specific wavelengths of light.
And they know exactly how the executive visual cortex will process the curves and the shading.
Right. By projecting precise algorithms of light from a spherical surface, the engineers literally weaponize the biological delay. They bypass the physical territory entirely and feed fabricated data directly into the map-making process.
They force 20,000 CEO brains to simultaneously read a corporate report that says you're standing beneath a giant moon, even though the physical territory consists of nothing but flat LED panels blinking on a curved architectural wall.
It's mind-blowing. The venue proves the author's core thesis. Because our reality is constructed from delayed, interpreted light, it is entirely susceptible to being rewritten.
It really highlights the fragility of our Cartesian worldview. We trust our spatial mapping implicitly, yet it can be entirely overridden by a well-designed sequence of photons.
So, what is the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener, as you move through your daily routine? The sources we explored today demand that we reconsider the authority of our own perception. The now you are experiencing, the device you are listening on, the walls around you, is merely a highly edited, delayed corporate report compiled by your neurobiological executives.
The privacy extension of physics has already filtered and altered the raw data before you ever became aware of it.
Exactly.
And as we conclude this deep dive, consider a practical application of the author's theory. Right now, hold your hand up in front of your face.
Okay, I have mine raised.
Focus on the physical reality of what is happening. You are not seeing your hand as it exists in this precise current microsecond. Despite the negligible physical distance between your palm and your pupil, the light reflecting off your skin requires a fraction of a nanosecond to traverse the gap.
Right.
It must strike your transparent sphere, trigger your retinal employees, travel up the optic nerve, and be processed by your visual cortex into the coherent image of a hand.
The map has to be drawn.
Exactly. You are inextricably bound to the past. The conscious CEO is permanently seated at a desk, processing memos from a universe that has already moved on to the next moment.
That is a staggering reality to carry with you. Thank you for joining us as we unpack this incredible stack of sources. Keep analyzing the data, keep questioning the map drawn by your executives, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.